The grand nexus of galactic diplomacy stretched before Ambassador Corell like a crystalline cathedral of cosmic governance. Suspended in the infinite darkness of deep space, the chamber represented millennia of interstellar cooperation and occasional conflict. Today, it would become a stage for a critical misunderstanding. Corell adjusted his translucent exomembrane, a complex sensory organ that allowed him to perceive far more than the average diplomat. His 6-layered eyes, each capable of processing different spectrums of electromagnetic radiation, swept across the assembled representatives. Delegates from over 200 advanced civilizations sat in their designated zones, holographic interfaces dancing with streams of real-time data and diplomatic historical archives. Distinguished council members, Corell began, his vocalization translator rendering his complex language into a series of precise audio frequencies. I come before you with a warning that demands your most serious consideration. The chamber's ambient lighting shifted, responding to Corell's neural interface. Holographic projections materialized, showing a relatively unremarkable blue-green planet, Earth. To most present, it looked like countless other developing worlds. Nothing special, certainly nothing threatening. But Corell knew better. His diplomatic career spanned 3 galactic cycles, covering first contact scenarios across multiple sectors. He had witnessed the emergence of numerous species, cataloged their developmental patterns, and understood the subtle indicators of potential. Humanity was different, dangerously different. The holographic display began cycling through a series of images, scientific breakthroughs, technological achievements, social transformations, all occurring at a pace that defied every known developmental model. Where most emerging species took thousands of years to achieve basic technological cohesion, humans were compressing centuries of progress into decades. Consider their technological trajectory, Corell continued, his voice carefully modulated to convey urgency without alarm. In less than one of their planetary centuries, they transitioned from basic mechanical transportation to quantum computing. From rudimentary electrical generation to experimental zero-point energy research. From isolated communication networks to a globally integrated information system. A Vortaxian diplomat, a crystalline being whose molecular structure reflected her emotional state, shifted uncomfortably. Her lattice momentarily flickered with dismissive iridescence. Ambassador Corell, she interrupted, her crystal structure producing a sound like delicate wind chimes. Your evidence suggests development, not threat. Many species show promise. Corell's secondary sensory nodes pulsed, the equivalent of a knowing smile. It is not their technology alone that concerns me. It is their capacity for adaptation, their ability to transform challenges into opportunities, their fundamental approach to problem solving. He activated another projection. Military conflicts, scientific collaborations, environmental challenges. In each scenario, humans demonstrated a capacity for collective action that was virtually unprecedented. They didn't just solve problems, they reimagined entire systems of understanding. The quantum archival records began scrolling, a damning compilation of human achievements. A species that could go from the first powered flight to lunar landing in a mere 66 years. A civilization that could develop a global communication network connecting billions of individuals in just a few decades. A culture that could simultaneously create weapons of immense destructive potential and develop intricate philosophical frameworks about peace and cooperation. They are unpredictable, Corell emphasized. And unpredictability is the most dangerous quality in an emerging spacefaring civilization. Most delegates were only half listening. The Galactic Council had seen countless emerging species. Most burned out, collapsed, or remained perpetually confined to their home systems. Humans were just another data point in the vast statistical model of cosmic development. What they didn't understand, what Corell desperately tried to communicate, was that humans were not just another data point. They were an anomaly, a potential inflection point in galactic civilization. As the presentation concluded, the chamber filled with the subtle background noise of diplomatic disinterest, casual dismissals, minor conversations, administrative whispers. Corell knew his warning would be filed, noted, and ultimately ignored. And that, he realized with a sense of profound inevitability, would be their greatest mistake. The Tsilthari invasion fleet emerged from subspace with calculated precision, a massive armada that had crushed countless civilizations before. Captain Zornak reviewed the initial reconnaissance data, his tentacular appendages dancing across holographic interfaces with practiced efficiency. Earth looked almost comically defenseless, a single planet with primitive defense satellites and a fractured global political system. Standard protocol suggested a swift, overwhelming assault. The Tsilthari had perfected their invasion strategy over millennia. Targeted electromagnetic pulses would disable communication networks. Gravitational disruptors would cripple planetary defense systems. Biological dampening fields would neutralize any potential resistance before it could truly begin. What Captain Zornak didn't realize was that humanity had been preparing for something like this, not out of specific knowledge, but out of an innate sense of potential threat. The first wave of attacks began precisely at 3:47 Coordinated Universal Time. Electromagnetic pulses swept across the planet, designed to disable critical infrastructure. But something unexpected happened. Instead of total collapse, human systems began to adapt almost instantaneously. At the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, a team of scientists and military personnel had been running increasingly complex simulations for years. What started as theoretical exercises had evolved into a comprehensive preparedness strategy that defied conventional military thinking. Dr. Samira Chen, lead coordinator of the Global Adaptive Response Team, watched the first wave of alien attacks with an unsettling calm. Her team had developed a distributed network system that was less a traditional defense grid and more a living, breathing organism of technological resilience. "Pulse wave incoming," announced Major Richard Martinez, his fingers flying across multiple holographic interfaces, redirecting municipal power grids to back up quantum mesh networks. What the Tsilthari saw as a knockout blow was absorbed and redistributed. Critical infrastructure didn't just survive, it transformed. Communication networks that should have been destroyed instead rerouted, creating new pathways faster than the invasion force could track. In orbit, the first Tsilthari strike groups approached with supreme confidence. Their bioengineered vessels represented the pinnacle of galactic military technology. Adaptive hull structures, quantum entanglement communication systems, energy weapons that could vaporize entire continents. They were the ultimate expression of technological superiority. They were about to meet their match. The first direct engagement occurred over the Pacific Ocean. 3 Tsilthari capital ships, each capable of destroying entire planetary defense systems, launched their primary assault. Energy weapons that could strip planets of their atmosphere charged to full power. Dr. Chen's team had been working on something extraordinary. What appeared to be a simple network of communication satellites was actually a complex, adaptive defense system. As the alien energy weapons fired, the satellites began to move. Not retreat. Move. Using experimental gravitational manipulation technology developed from theoretical research into dark matter, the satellites didn't just dodge. They'd redirected the incoming energy, creating a complex geometric pattern that sent the alien weaponry back toward its source. 2 of the Tsilthari capital ships were immediately disabled, their own weapons turning against them in a display of technological judo that defied everything the alien invasion force understood about planetary defense. Aboard the invasion command ship, Captain Zornak watched in mounting horror. This was impossible. Developing species didn't fight like this. They were supposed to panic, to fragment, to be overwhelmed by the sheer technological superiority of the invasion force. Humans were doing something else entirely. Around the world, a remarkable transformation was occurring. Universities became research centers. Private technology companies shared critical discoveries in real time. Military and civilian resources merged into a unified response that no traditional invasion strategy could have anticipated. In Silicon Valley, a group of researchers who had been working on experimental quantum communication technologies suddenly found their most theoretical work becoming critically practical. In Beijing, artificial intelligence systems designed for climate modeling were rapidly repurposed for tactical analysis. In Lagos, a distributed computing project originally meant for medical research became a critical component of the planetary defense network. The invasion wasn't just being resisted. It was being studied, analyzed, and transformed into an opportunity for unprecedented technological advancement. Captain Zornak's communication systems began lighting up with reports from across the invasion fleet. Entire strike groups were being neutralized not through traditional military might, but through a form of technological adaptation that seemed to blur the lines between defense, communication, and innovation. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were rewriting the very rules of conflict. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a circular command center that defied traditional military or scientific design. The Global Adaptive Response Hub, hastily converted from a retired particle accelerator facility in New Mexico, hummed with an energy that was part technological marvel, part human determination. Her team represented a microcosm of humanity's greatest strength: diversity of thought, rapid collaboration, and an almost impossible capacity for innovation under pressure. Theoretical physicists worked alongside aerospace engineers. Computer scientists collaborated with marine biologists. Mathematicians shared screens with linguists and quantum mechanics experts. That SIL-theory communication frequencies are complex, announced Dr. Aidan Chen, a quantum communication specialist who had been awake for nearly 72 hours. But they're not impenetrable. They're using a quantum entanglement communication system that assumes a consistent physical constant across all communication channels. Alina's eyes lit up. Most would have seen this as a technical challenge. She saw it as an opportunity. "Break their assumption," she said quietly. The entire room fell silent, then erupted into a flurry of activity. Within hours, they developed a communication disruption protocol that was less about blocking signals and more about introducing controlled chaos into the SIL-theory's communication network. It wasn't just interference. It was a form of technological linguistics that transformed their communication system into a puzzle that would take their best minds decades to unravel. Meanwhile, in orbital research stations and repurposed research facilities around the globe, something extraordinary was happening. The invasion had become a catalyst for unprecedented scientific collaboration. The International Space Station, once a symbol of peaceful scientific exploration, transformed into a critical research and development platform. Astronauts and researchers from competing nations worked with a synchronicity that would have been unimaginable mere weeks earlier. Dr. Fatima Al-Rashid, a materials scientist from the United Arab Emirates, made a breakthrough that would change everything. Working with a team of researchers from Brazil, Japan, and Canada, she developed a nano-adaptive shielding technology that could dynamically respond to different energy signatures. "It's not about blocking energy," she explained during an emergency global broadcast. "It's about understanding the energy and transforming it. We're creating a defensive system that learns." The implications were staggering. Traditional defensive technologies were about resistance. This new approach was about adaptation, about turning an attack into an opportunity for understanding. Artificial intelligence systems that had been developed for climate modeling, medical research, and theoretical physics were rapidly repurposed. What had been separate research streams merged into a global, collaborative intelligence network. In orbital laboratories, researchers discovered that the SIL-theory's advanced technologies contained fundamental design flaws. Their quantum communication systems, while advanced, relied on a set of physical assumptions that humans were now systematically dismantling. They'd been conquering civilizations using a playbook, Dr. Rodriguez told her team. "We're going to write a new one." The most remarkable aspect of humanity's response wasn't just the technology. It was the speed of adaptation. where other civilizations might have taken generations to develop a single technological breakthrough. Humans were creating entire new fields of research in days. A distributed computing project that began as a way to model protein folding for medical research became a critical component of understanding alien technology. Machine learning algorithms designed to predict economic trends were now analyzing invasion strategies in real time. Military strategists worked alongside game theorists and complexity scientists. They weren't just planning defensive strategies. They were developing entirely new frameworks for understanding conflict and communication. Dr. Rodriguez watched the data streams, a complex smile playing across her features. The Xiltheri had come expecting a conventional conflict. Instead, they had unleashed humanity's most powerful resource, its capacity for collaborative innovation. In research centers, universities, and makeshift laboratories around the world, something profound was happening. The invasion wasn't just being resisted, it was being transformed into the most significant technological leap in human history. The Xiltheri had intended to conquer a planet. Instead, they had sparked a revolution of human potential. The Global Communication Coordination Center looked nothing like a traditional military installation. Situated in a repurposed data center in Geneva, it resembled a high-tech university laboratory more than a war room. Giant holographic displays mapped global communication patterns, while teams from diverse backgrounds worked with an intensity that defied conventional understanding of crisis management. Dr. Marcus Okoye, a cognitive anthropologist with a background in information warfare and cultural communication, stood at the center of this extraordinary operation. Where traditional military strategists saw conflict, he saw a complex communication challenge. They're operating on a fundamental misunderstanding, Marcus explained to his team, which included linguists, psychologists, artists, and communication specialists. That Xiltheri view conflict as a linear process: invasion, resistance, submission, but human communication doesn't work that way. The team began developing a multi-layered communication strategy that was part psychological warfare, part cultural exchange, and part pure intellectual provocation. Their first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's technological research team had discovered subtle patterns in Xiltheri communication networks. These weren't just communication channels. They were complex social hierarchies encoded in technological systems. Marcus's team began crafting messages that would do more than just communicate. They would challenge the fundamental cognitive frameworks of the alien invasion force. Worldwide, creative professionals were mobilized in ways no one could have predicted. Digital artists created visual narratives that would be broadcast across intercepted alien communication channels. Composers developed sound frequencies designed to create cognitive dissonance in the Xiltheri's communication systems. Writers and linguists worked on complex message structures that would challenge the aliens' understanding of communication itself. In orbit, a series of carefully crafted broadcasts began. These weren't traditional defensive communications. They were intellectual provocations, complex narratives that introduced concepts that Xiltheri had never encountered. One transmission, developed by a team of quantum physicists and performance artists, presented a mathematical proof that was simultaneously a work of abstract art and a profound philosophical statement. Another broadcast introduced complex game theory, scenarios that challenged the Xiltheri's understanding of conflict and cooperation. The invasion force's communication networks began to show signs of strain. Their hierarchical systems, designed for conquest and control, struggled to process the multidimensional human communications. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a specialist in emergent communication systems, noticed something extraordinary happening. The Xiltheri weren't just receiving messages, they were being forced to develop entirely new cognitive frameworks to understand them. "We're not just defending," she told Marcus. "We're teaching." The psychological approach extended beyond communication. Global media transformed the narrative of invasion. Instead of fear, humans responded with a blend of scientific curiosity, strategic thinking, and an almost playful intellectual challenge. Social media platforms became unexpected battlegrounds of intellectual resistance. Memes, scientific explanations, artistic interpretations of the invasion spread faster than the SIL theory could comprehend. Where other civilizations might have collapsed under psychological pressure, humans were turning the invasion into a global collaborative experience. Military strategists worked alongside comedians and social media experts. They understood that psychological resilience wasn't about suppressing fear. It was about transforming it into something productive, something creative. Schools around the world adjusted their curricula in real time. Students were no longer just learning. They were active participants in humanity's most significant challenge. Children created artwork analyzing alien technologies. University research programs were restructured to focus on understanding the invasion. The SIL theory had expected a conventional resistance. Instead, they encountered a global civilization that was treating the invasion as the ultimate collaborative problem-solving exercise. Marcus watched the communication patterns evolve. What was happening transcended traditional conflict. Humanity was engaging with the invasion not as a threat, but as an unprecedented opportunity for growth, understanding, and collective advancement. "We're not just defending our planet," he said quietly to his team. "We're expanding the very definition of what conflict can mean." The invasion was becoming something else entirely, a catalyst for humanity's most significant evolutionary leap. The Quantum Horizons Research Facility had once been a theoretical physics research center. Now, it was the beating heart of humanity's most ambitious technological revolution. Located in a converted underground complex beneath the Andes Mountains, the facility represented a convergence of scientific disciplines that would have been unimaginable mere months ago. Dr. Ai-Lin stood at the center of a circular research hub, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to blur the line between technology and pure imagination. Around her, researchers from every conceivable scientific background worked with an intensity that defied traditional understanding of collaboration. The SIL theory technology isn't just advanced, she explained to a group of interdisciplinary researchers. It's a complete paradigm of understanding. Every piece of their technology tells a story about how they perceive reality. What had begun as a defensive effort was transforming into something far more profound. The invasion was becoming a catalyst for the most significant technological leap in human history. In orbital research stations, laboratories, and makeshift research centers around the globe, scientists were doing more than just studying alien technology. They were reimagining the fundamental frameworks of scientific understanding. A team of quantum physicists from Brazil discovered that the SIL theory's faster-than-light communication systems relied on a complex quantum entanglement principle that humans had only theorized about. Instead of simply copying the technology, they began developing an entirely new approach to information transfer. Dr. Rafael Santos, leading the quantum communication research, explained their breakthrough during a global broadcast. "We're not just intercepting their technology," he said. "We're understanding the philosophical principles behind their scientific approach." The research was inherently collaborative. A marine biologist working on adaptive communication systems found unexpected parallels with quantum communication networks. A computer scientist developing neural network algorithms discovered connections with the SIL theory's biological computational systems. In a converted semiconductor manufacturing facility in Taiwan, a team led by Dr. Wei Zhang developed what would become known as adaptive molecular computing systems. These weren't just computers, they were living, learning technological organisms that could modify their own computational structures in real time. The most remarkable aspect of these developments was their global nature. Traditional barriers of national security dissolved in the face of the invasion. Research centers shared discoveries in real time. Universities restructured entire academic programs to focus on understanding and adapting alien technologies. Artificial intelligence systems, originally developed for climate modeling, medical research, and economic prediction, were rapidly repurposed. What had been separate streams of research merged into a global, collaborative intelligence network that operated with a speed and complexity that would have been unimaginable months earlier. Dr. Lin's team made a breakthrough that would change everything. They discovered that the Siltheri's technological systems weren't just advanced. They were fundamentally different in their approach to processing information. Where human technologies relied on binary systems, the alien technology operated on multidimensional computational principles. It's not about processing information, Dr. Lin told her team. It's about understanding the nature of information itself. The technological developments extended far beyond military applications. Medical researchers discovered that the Siltheri's biological adaptation technologies could revolutionize treatments for genetic disorders. Environmental scientists found new approaches to sustainable energy based on the aliens' power distribution systems. In universities and research centers, students became active participants in this global scientific endeavor. Undergraduate research programs were restructured to focus on understanding and adapting alien technologies. What would have been theoretical research became immediate, practical innovation. The Siltheri had come expecting to conquer a planet. Instead, they had unleashed humanity's most powerful resource, its capacity for collaborative innovation, its ability to transform challenges into opportunities for growth. Dr. Lin watched the research data streams, a complex smile playing across her features. The invasion wasn't just being resisted. It was becoming the most significant technological learning experience in human history. We're not just defending, she said quietly to her team. We're evolving. The technological breakthrough was about more than survival. It was about fundamentally expanding the human understanding of what was possible. The Battle of Proxima Centauri would be remembered as the moment everything changed. What began as a seemingly impossible defensive stand transformed into humanity's most audacious strategic maneuver. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the ISS Horizon, a vessel that defied every conventional understanding of space warfare. Developed from the collaborative research of the previous months, the ship was less a traditional military vessel and more a living, adaptive technological ecosystem. Siltheri fleet approaching, announced Lieutenant David Chen, his hands moving across interfaces that seemed to breathe and shift with the ship's computational systems. 12 capital ships, 27 support vessels. Quantum signature confirms primary invasion vector. The Siltheri had no concept of what was about to happen. They approached with the same confidence that had crushed countless civilizations before, a confidence built on millennia of technological superiority. They were about to meet their match. The Horizon's adaptive shield system was unlike anything in galactic military history. Developed through a collaboration of quantum physicists, marine biologists, and artificial intelligence specialists, the shields didn't just block energy. They understood it, adapted to it, and ultimately transformed it. As the first wave of Siltheri energy weapons approached, something extraordinary happened. The Horizon didn't just defend. It began to communicate. Not with traditional communication systems. The ship's adaptive interfaces began to interact with the incoming alien weapons at a fundamental quantum level. Each energy burst was analyzed, understood, and then subtly redirected. 2 Siltheri capital ships found their own weapons turning against them, their complex energy systems hijacked and transformed by the Horizon's unprecedented computational capabilities. But this was more than just a technological marvel. It was a statement of human potential. Across multiple communication channels, the battle became something more than a traditional conflict. Research teams on Earth continued to analyze every moment of the engagement. Universities redirected entire research programs to study the unfolding strategic interaction. Commander Rodriguez wasn't just fighting a battle. She was conducting the most complex scientific experiment in human history. Quantum entanglement network stabilizing. Lieutenant Chen reported. The ship's communication systems were doing something that defied traditional military strategy. They were learning, adapting, transforming the very nature of the conflict in real time. The Siltheri fleet found itself confronted with an impossible scenario. Their weapons were being understood and neutralized faster than they could adapt. Their communication networks were being infiltrated and analyzed with a speed that suggested something beyond traditional technological capabilities. What humans understood, and that Siltheri did not, was that this wasn't just a battle. It was a conversation. A complex, multi-dimensional dialogue conducted through technology, strategy, and an unprecedented capacity for understanding. Dr. Marcus Okoye, watching from the Global Communication Coordination Center, recognized the profound significance of the moment. "We're not just defending," he told his team. "We're demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to conflict." The Horizon began to do something that would become legendary. Instead of simply destroying Siltheri vessels, it began to communicate with them. Not through traditional communication channels, but through complex quantum information networks that challenged the very foundation of the aliens' understanding of interaction. Some Siltheri vessels began to power down, not from damage, but from a form of cognitive disruption that human researchers would study for generations. They were encountering a form of strategic and technological interaction that their entire civilization had no framework to understand. By the battle's conclusion, 12 Siltheri capital ships had been effectively neutralized, not destroyed, transformed. Commander Rodriguez watched the final moments of the engagement with a sense of profound understanding. This wasn't a victory in the traditional sense. It was a demonstration of humanity's most powerful capability. The ability to understand, adapt, and fundamentally reimagine the nature of challenge. "Conflict resolved," she said quietly. But the words felt inadequate for what had just occurred. The Battle of Proxima Centauri was more than a turning point in a war. It was a turning point in the understanding of what intelligent conflict could mean. Humanity had done more than defend itself. It had expanded the very definition of strategic interaction. The grand nexus of galactic diplomacy had never witnessed a gathering quite like this, where once the chamber had been a place of detached bureaucratic procedure. Now it crackled with an energy of profound uncertainty. Ambassador Corell sat in a position of quiet vindication. The holographic displays told a story that defied every established understanding of emerging civilizations. Humanity had not just survived an invasion. They had transformed it into something unprecedented. Representatives from over 200 advanced civilizations filled the circular chamber. The Vortaxian crystal delegates shifted with agitation. The gaseous nebulon ambassadors formed complex contemplative patterns. Even the notoriously impassive silicon-based Lithosians seemed unsettled. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Marcus Okoye stood at the center of the chamber, not as military representatives, but as scientific diplomats. Their presentation was unlike any first contact scenario in galactic history. "We're not here to discuss conquest," Elena began, her voice calm and precise. "We're here to propose a fundamentally new approach to interstellar cooperation." The holographic displays began to tell a remarkable story, not just of human defense, but of technological transformation. Each slide demonstrated how the invasion had become a catalyst for scientific and cultural advancement. Medical breakthroughs developed during the conflict showed potential treatments for genetic disorders across multiple species. Adaptive communication technologies suggested new ways of understanding complex information systems. Quantum research initiated during the defensive efforts presented possibilities for energy production that could revolutionize multiple civilizations. Marcus stepped forward, presenting a framework that was part scientific proposal, part philosophical statement. "The invasion revealed something profound about potential," he explained. "Not just human potential, but the potential of collaborative understanding." Ambassador Corell watched the proceedings with a sense of historical moment. He had warned the Council about humanity. Now they were witnessing exactly what he had predicted, but in a form no one could have anticipated. The Siltheri delegation sat in stunned silence. Their invasion force, once considered the most advanced military machine in the galaxy, had been neutralized not through superior firepower, but through a form of interaction they could barely comprehend. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a specialist in emergent communication systems, presented a series of mathematical and linguistic models that demonstrated how human cognitive approaches differed fundamentally from other known civilizations. It wasn't about technological superiority. It was about adaptive thinking. "We're proposing a new model of interstellar interaction," Yuki explained. "One based on collaborative problem-solving rather than hierarchical conquest." The chamber fell into a profound silence. What humanity was suggesting was nothing short of a complete reimagining of galactic diplomatic and scientific engagement. The Lithosian representative, a being composed of intricate crystalline structures that represented collective consciousness, was the first to respond. Its communication, typically reserved and mathematical, carried an unexpected undertone of respect. "Your approach challenges fundamental assumptions," the Lithosian ambassador translated through complex quantum communication interfaces. "This is unexpected." Grell allowed himself a subtle moment of satisfaction. Unexpected had always been humanity's greatest strength. The proposal wasn't just a diplomatic maneuver. It was a comprehensive framework for scientific, cultural, and technological exchange. Humanity wasn't seeking dominance. They were offering partnership. Research centers would be established. Communication protocols developed. A new interstellar collaborative network that prioritized mutual understanding over territorial expansion. The Vortaxian delegates, known for their complex emotional crystalline structures, began to form patterns of cautious intrigue. The Nebulan ambassadors started reconfiguring their traditional diplomatic algorithms. Dr. Rodriguez's final presentation was its most audacious. A complete open-source database of technological and scientific discoveries made during the conflict. Not just human discoveries, but a framework for how those discoveries were made. "We're not just sharing technology," she said. "We're sharing our approach to discovery." The chamber understood the profound implications. Humanity was offering something far more valuable than advanced technology. They were offering a new way of understanding potential. As the initial discussions concluded, it became clear that the invasion had changed everything. Not just for humanity, but for the entire galactic community. Ambassador Corell looked around the chamber. The galaxy would never be the same. 5 years after the invasion, the galaxy looked fundamentally different. The research facilities established through the Collaborative Interstellar Knowledge Exchange, CIKE, stood as monuments to a new approach to scientific and cultural understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked through the central hub of the Proxima Centauri Research Station, a facility that embodied humanity's transformative vision. Researchers from over 50 different species worked side by side, their workstations creating a complex tapestry of collaborative innovation. The facility was more than a research center. It was a living testament to the potential of cooperative discovery. Young scientists from across the galaxy had been drawn to this new model of exploration. Traditional academic boundaries had dissolved. Disciplines that were once considered entirely separate now found unexpected connections. A marine biologist from a methane-based ocean world collaborated with a quantum physicist from a silicon-based civilization, their research exploring communication systems that transcended traditional biological limitations. Dr. Marcus Okoye, now the primary human representative to the Galactic Scientific Consortium, watched the interactions with a sense of profound satisfaction. The invasion had been transformed into humanity's most significant contribution to galactic understanding. The technological developments were extraordinary. Adaptive medical technologies developed from the conflict now offered treatment possibilities for genetic disorders across multiple species. Communication systems that emerged from humanity's defensive strategies had revolutionized interstellar information exchange. But the most significant transformation was cultural. The Xiltheri, once a feared conquering force, had undergone their own profound change. Their hierarchical society began to adopt more collaborative approaches. Research showed that the encounter with humanity had fundamentally challenged their understanding of civilization, development, and interaction. Ambassador Corell, now a senior advisor to the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, reflected on the journey. The warning he had issued years ago had been more prophetic than anyone could have imagined. Humanity hadn't just defended itself, it had offered a new paradigm of interstellar engagement. The research stations became living laboratories of possibility. A project exploring adaptive communication systems brought together linguists, quantum physicists, and cultural anthropologists from across the galaxy. They were developing communication frameworks that could bridge not just linguistic differences, but fundamental conceptual barriers between species. Dr. Yuki Tanaka led a groundbreaking initiative exploring emergent intelligence systems. Her team was developing communication protocols that could potentially bridge understanding with entirely non-biological intelligence forms. The research had implications far beyond current technological understanding. Universities across the galaxy restructured their academic programs. The human approach, which emphasized adaptive thinking, collaborative problem-solving, and interdisciplinary research, became a model for educational systems. The economic implications were equally profound. The open-source technology framework developed by human researchers transformed interstellar economic models. Technological exchange became less about competition and more about collective advancement. Political systems began to change. The rigid hierarchical structures that had dominated galactic governance for millennia started to give way to more collaborative approaches. Species that had been marginalized found new opportunities for contribution and recognition. Environmental restoration projects emerged as a significant area of collaborative research. Technologies developed during the conflict found unexpected applications in addressing ecological challenges across multiple worlds. Dr. Rodriguez paused by a holographic display showing the interconnected research networks. What had begun as a defensive response to an invasion had become humanity's most significant contribution to galactic understanding. "We're not just exploring space," she often told her students. "We're exploring the potential of collaborative intelligence." The young researchers around her, humans and non-humans alike, represented a new generation. They had grown up in a galaxy transformed by an unexpected encounter, a conflict that became an opportunity for unprecedented growth. Ambassador Corell, watching from a nearby observation deck, allowed himself a rare moment of emotional display. The holographic displays showed research collaborations, cultural exchanges, and scientific breakthroughs that would have been unimaginable before the invasion. Humanity had done more than survive. They had reimagined what was possible. As the research station continued its work, it stood as a beacon of a fundamental truth. Potential is not about current capabilities, but about the capacity to understand, to adapt, and to grow together. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity was just getting started. Epilogue. The universe had learned an important lesson. Potential is rarely about current capabilities, but about the capacity to learn, adapt, and grow together.